Alright, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores coming with the full Washington draft guide. I wanted to come out with this video sooner, but reports just kept coming in, and I feel like now is a good time. Granted, a lot more is gonna happen, a lot more reports and rumors are gonna come out before the draft actually happens. But I feel like this is a nice sweet spot where I feel like we have enough information, but I don't want to release it like right before the draft. I want people to actually know what to expect going into the draft hours before. So this is a full draft guide. We're gonna end it with all of the prospects we're interested in. I'm gonna show y'all like the guys we've interviewed with, who we're reportedly interested in, and like the guys that we met with, how many times have we met with them, how interested are they in them, and who met with them. Was it like a specific coach? Was it like the team as a whole? Things like that. So we're gonna take a look at that list later. First, I want to dive into the high character 2021 NFL draft prospects that we are likely to take because of their high character, like the Terry McLaurins, the Chase Youngs, the Jonathan Allens. I'm also going to take a look at some trade up candidates based on reports. I'm going to take a look at some stay at 19 candidates. We're going to take a look at the teams that are possible threats of taking a quarterback before us, assuming that Lawrence, Wilson, and Jones go 1, 2, and 3 with Lance and Fields left. Who are all of the teams that may potentially go after quarterback ahead of us? And I also give a threat rating. So out of 5, how much of a threat are they to actually try to take Lance or Fields? And for guys that are further back in the draft, like the Patriots and Bears, how likely are they to trade up and get one of those guys in front of us? And then also some of the QBs outside of the first round that we may take a look at based on reports and who we're interested in and things like that. So without further ado, let's get it. Alright, so first up, we have the high character 2021 NFL draft prospects, the Rivera type of guys, the Terry McLaurins, the Chase Youngs, the Jonathan Allens. First up, Jabril Cox, my boy, linebacker from LSU, used to be at NDSU, and I mocked us taking him in the 2020 draft. But he went back to college, transferred to LSU, and balled out. And now instead of getting him in the 5th round, I feel like at the very latest he'll make it to is the 2nd round. And he's a high character guy because he's always been a captain and a leader of the defenses he's been a part of. He's like that dude. Not Luke Kuechly physically, but definitely Luke Kuechly mentally as far as like being the leader and the spirit of a defense. And then also, he's great in coverage, which is one of our biggest holes on our team. Arguably the biggest hole, linebacker coverage. Then you have number 2, Jamin Davis. Both parents are military. You know Rivera is very militant, so he's gonna love that. He also played special teams, just like Terry McLaurin. There's just a certain type of mentality that you have, a no nonsense, do whatever has to get done no matter what, that special teams players come with, like a Terry McLaurin. They're willing to get their hands dirty and do all of the dirty work and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And then plus, physically, he has everything we need in a linebacker. Potential-wise, he has more to offer than JOK and Jabril Cox. I just feel like Jabril Cox and JOK have higher floors. But physically, athleticism-wise, Jamin Davis is everything we want. Number 3, Justin Fields, considered highest character, highest intangibles QB in the draft, especially amongst Washington front office and coaches, according to reports. And also, he's everything we need in a quarterback as far as dual threat ability, strong arm. Literally has everything to his game except for consistency so far. So again, Justin Fields just has all of the intangibles, all of the reasons that people love Deshaun Watson coming out of college. Justin Fields has all of that, plus far more physical upside than Deshaun Watson ever had or ever will have. And Justin Fields also may fall to a comfortable trade-up range for us. Then you also have my boy Lance, and his story of how he's always had to prove people wrong every step of his life and his football career, and how he will have the same chip on his shoulder going into the NFL. And he interviews very well and talks like the face of a franchise. So those are 4 notable high character guys that we may go for, especially within the 1st round. Then there's also trade candidates based on reports. These are not necessarily just guys that I want. These happen to be the 3 guys that I want the most. But these are also reports coming from John Keim and all of these other trustworthy sources. Number 1, Trey Lance. Scott Turner reportedly likes him a lot, and we sent the max 3 people to his first pro day. And I feel like they saw everything they needed to see at his first pro day, and that's why they didn't feel the need to go to the second one. And out of all of the quarterbacks in this class, Trey Lance's traits and skill set and attributes fit what Scott Turner wants to do with this Air Coryell offense the best. And then there goes number 2, Justin Fields, who also can fit what Scott Turner wants to do very well, just not necessarily to the level of a Trey Lance. That doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be better than Trey Lance, but Trey Lance literally is the ideal prototype for what Scott Turner wants to do. But number 2, Justin Fields, for reasons I've already discussed. The team loves him, according to reports. I mean, he's just that high character guy that Rivera wants on his team. Then number 3, Micah Parsons. Rivera reportedly wants his Luke Kuechly, and Parsons is literally the only player that's even remotely in that range of potential out of this draft. Maybe a Jamin Davis. But Micah Parsons comes with a floor that Jamin Davis doesn't come with. Also, Parsons could fall due to teams not wanting to deal with his character concerns. And Rivera has a culture in place to not only get the best out of players on the field, but also off the field. Plus, we've seen them take Sadiq Charles, who was at the very least a second-round talent last year, arguably first, but slid to the 4th round due to character concerns. Rivera has shown that he feels like he has a good enough culture in place to where he can take guys with character concerns and get them in shape. I mean, we have guys like Terry McLaurin, Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. I mean, the hardest worker, the highest character guys that are around these other guys, to where like Ron Rivera and the coaches in the front office don't even have to micromanage because the players are going to be on his head about it. But even then, Micah Parsons' character concerns have nothing to deal with his dedication to football, his leadership on the field, or anything like that. And there's also no Darius Geis assault, domestic violence type of character concerns, and no drug related things either, like a Sadiq Charles. Then we also have a lot of stay at 19 candidates, and I want to break down exactly why they may make it to 19 and why we may want to take them. First up, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. First of all, he fixes our biggest hole, linebacker coverage, and he's also an alpha male on the field. And even my Notre Dame friend, and I agree with him, that JOK was pretty much like the only guy on that defense. He would have looked even better if he had at least good defensive line around him, a good secondary around him. I mean, he was literally out there with the team on his back defensively. And even though I thought that he may be able to slide past 19, he may be like a trade back candidate, there's heavy reports saying that he won't make it past the Raiders. Like, it's over with for that. The Raiders, if he makes it to their pick at 17, they're taking him. And I think it's very likely that he will. Because again, without the Raiders being heavily interested in him, I feel like you could possibly get a JOK in the 20s. Just off of the fact that he doesn't give you much middle linebacker capability. Mike, he's more of a coverage guy. And if anything, maybe even like sub packages moving into the slot. And with us running nickel so much with, 2 linebackers on the field at a time, we need linebackers that can both contribute in the run and passing game. Whereas JOK is mostly just coverage. I mean, he can make plays in the run game as well, but he's not a Micah Parsons as far as the run game goes at all. Especially like blitzing and stopping the run and plugging in the right gaps and responsibilities and things like that. Then number 2, Jamin Davis, for reasons I expounded upon earlier, but also another guy that we can more than likely get even after trading back. And there's also been recent reports that we're interested in the Jamin Davis. You never know, he may even make it to the 2nd round. Then number 3, you also have Elijah Vera Tucker, interior offensive lineman. Not very likely after Eric Flowers trade, but they could possibly see Tucker as a starting left tackle. Because he could be a solid left tackle, but he has all pro potential inside. But then after you draft him, there will be huge competition between AVT, Cornelius Lucas, Eric Flowers, Wes Schweitzer, and Sadiq Charles competing for only 2 spots. Great depth, but I still feel like that's an embarrassment of riches with bigger needs elsewhere, mainly a franchise quarterback and that guy at linebacker. Then you have number 4, Caleb Farley, cornerback. May fall due to back-to-back lower back surgeries this offseason. He's the corner with the best blend of potential and a high floor in this class, outside of those back-to-back lower back surgeries. He has a very high floor, but he also has immense potential. I would definitely say he has a higher ceiling than Patrick Surtain. He's arguably one of the 10 best players in this draft, period, like regardless of position. And to have 2 lockdown corners would make getting yards against us almost impossible. But I'm not sure if Rivera and company are willing to take a chance on a guy that's falling due to injury concerns. And also, corner isn't a huge need, but man, you have Caleb Farley, William Jackson on the outside, Kendall Fuller in the slot. We have the best secondary in the NFL. It's plain and simple. Best defensive line and the best secondary. Then 5th, you have Trevon Merrick, the safety. A very underrated need for this team is a rangy center fielder type of free safety. Curl can pretty much do everything on the back end but play single high free safety. Get a guy that can cover the 3rd level himself and allow everybody else to play on the 2nd level in the front line. How can you even move the ball against this team? But at the same time, they probably won't force it and take them in the 1st, because when in doubt, there's other guys in the draft later in the draft, just maybe not to the exact level of a Trevon Merrick. And also, break glass in case of emergency. You have free agency options like a Trey Boston, who they've been in contact with for months, who they're clearly interested in, but they may wait to sign him until after the draft if they don't get a guy like a Trevon Merrick. And then you also have Malik Hooker out there, who was seen as like Ed Reed type of potential coming out of Ohio State, but just hasn't been able to stay healthy and develop into that guy. Number 6, you have tackles like Christian Darrisaw and Rashawn Slater. They're all possible, but there's been a lot of reports that stating tackles will be going way sooner than what the media thinks. Very possible that neither of these guys make it to 19. Also, Lucas is a solid starter, and Sadiq Charles has immense potential at left tackle if he can stay healthy. I mean, like Pro Bowl level potential. So I feel like that's just not a big need like a lot of people think for some reason. And then number 7, the possibility that a crazy talent at like receiver like a Smith or Jalen Waddle is of course possible, but very slim. The Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles all like at least one of these guys, and maybe even both of them, and will likely take them. So pretty much expect to be going against one or both of these guys twice a year for potentially the next 5 years at least. I'm literally expecting Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle to land in the NFC East, just not on our team. Between the Giants, Eagles, and Cowboys, I can easily see both of them, at least one of them, land in the NFC East. Then the next part of this video, we got to look at the threat rating of teams possibly taking quarterbacks before us, assuming Lawrence, Wilson, and Jones are gone. So we're basically just talking about Lance and Fields. First up, going in order of the draft, we have the Falcons. I give them a 1 out of 5. It used to be as high as a 3, but multiple reports from everywhere and all kinds of sources are saying that they're basically going to pick Kyle Pitts. And there's even a rumor that the Saints may try to trade up to number 3 to get Kyle Pitts so that the Falcons can't. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So Kyle Pitts is pretty much going in that top 4. And especially since they may end up moving on from Julio and trading them away. And we've seen Matt Ryan has led a team to the Super Bowl before. So if they can build that defense and get a Kyle Pitts. I mean, imagine Julio, Ridley, and Pitts this year. That's arguably the best offense in the NFL, period. Because Matt Ryan hasn't been the problem. It's been defense. But then you give them arguably the best receiver in this class. I mean, even if you take away the tight end aspect of Pitts, if you take away the blocking, Pitts could even be the best just plain old receiver in this class. And then you build defense throughout the rest of the draft and maybe pick up some guys in free agency after the draft. The Falcons could be diddly. I hate the Falcons, but hey, man, that's a reality right there. But at the same time, on the other side of the argument, you're never really expecting the Falcons to be able to pick 4th overall and take a franchise guy. Like, this is a unique opportunity to get a Lance or Fields, but at the same time, it looks like they're going Pitts. Then number 2, Detroit, with the 7th pick overall. I give them a 2 out of 5. Very serious reports about their love for Jamar Chase and that they are willing to trade up to get him. Even called the Falcons about their 4th pick to get him. And I feel like if they can't get the guy they love to the point that they're willing to trade up from 7 to 4 to get him, I feel like they'll most likely just be like, F it and trade back. If there's only one guy who you love and then he's gone before you pick, you'll probably just trade back. And there's been rumors of them trying to do a similar rebuild as the Dolphins, with trying to get as many first round picks as possible for the next few years. Plus, even though golf isn't really good, at least they have a guy that can sell tickets and win some games right now. Build around golf and then move on from golf and have a team that's a QB away, because you already built around the QB while building around golf. Plus, teams this year will value future first round picks way more this year than any year probably in NFL history, because this 2021 draft class has the smallest pool of players in a long time because of the pandemic. A lot of guys return for another season who otherwise wouldn't. So next year's draft is going to have the largest pool of players to choose from probably in NFL history. So great players will slide further than normal just because there will be way more of them next year. Like literally every position but QB is expected to be deeper next year than this year. So teams are going to value future picks more in this draft than most other drafts, probably all of them. And I could see the Lions being like, hey man, these future firsts are really worth something this time around. Then you have Carolina. I give them a 2 out of 5. Carolina, first of all, is weird for giving up all of that trade value for Darnold if you're not going to at least give him an honest chance. Like, why did you trade for Darnold if you're just going to take one of those higher guys? If you're just going to take a Lancer Fields anyway? Like, what was it? Drafting a top QB, even if you promise Darnold he will start this year, will definitely kill his confidence. And most importantly, that means you're not building around him. You're building against them. Like, why? Instead of getting them help at tackle, which they need big time, or even corner, another big need, they will be getting him competition. Instead of getting them help, getting them competition, I just don't see why. What was the point of making that trade? I think it's just very silly. But I understand how they could say this is our best chance to get a potential top 10 QB in Lancer Fields, but then you just wasted a second, fourth, and a sixth round pick for literally no reason at all. You at least got to give Darnold a year to justify that value, let alone give him a chance around a non-terrible team like the Jets. The Carolina Panthers situation, even before this draft, is way better than what the Jets had around Darnold last year. So at least give them that year. And again, at the very least, give them a year just to justify that trade. And shouts out to the Jets for somehow even getting those picks in return for a QB that has looked terrible so far. But he still has potential. Still very young. I think he's literally almost the same age as Mac Jones. Like, it's crazy. But he has built bad habits since he's been in the NFL. So definitely a risky guy to take a chance on. But they did it. Now, next up, fourth, you have the Broncos. I rated them 3 out of 5 with them picking 9th overall. And honestly, in my gut, I feel like they won't go QB because they have a talented but still developing QB in Drew Lock, who has great traits. And then at the very least, you have a decent bridge QB in Teddy Bridgewater, who can win games for you right now, if necessary. But most importantly, and like with every team who was a threat to take Lancer Fields before us, I feel like their current QB situation matters. But most importantly, filling the other holes matters more for these teams out here that have way bigger holes and more holes than we do, especially on offensive line for the Broncos. They should honestly go offensive line and give Drew Lock another year, and when in doubt, you can compete with Teddy Bridgewater. And if it doesn't work, you have a high draft pick again next year, and you can take one of those QBs, even though I do honestly feel like that next year's crop of QBs won't be anywhere near as special as this year's class, but we'll see. But their offensive line is terrible. Like, you gotta get an offensive line. Like, people talk about the holes we have, but the Broncos offensive line is worse. I feel like our weapons are better. So if anybody needs to go offensive line or build around the QB instead of taking the great QB when they have the chance, it's the Broncos more than us. Then number 5, you have the Vikings, and I give this a 1 out of 5 rating. They're picking number 14th overall. I think it would be smart long-term for the Vikings to replace Kirk Cousins with a special QB talent, but I doubt they will, especially since they also have a big offensive line problem. I think this area right here is where we may see a lot of tackles get taken off the board. That 5 to 14 range, I can see 3 to 4 tackles getting taken, honestly. A lot of teams out here with offensive line problems, including the Vikings and, like I just spoke about, the Broncos, who also have decent QBs in place. Then next up, you have the Patriots, and boy, this is a 4 out of 5. They're picking 15th overall currently, and Lancer Fields could super develop behind my boy Cam Newton, and then they would be another 20-year dynasty. I mean, please don't let this happen. I really hope this doesn't happen. Even if we didn't need a franchise QB, I still just don't want the Patriots to get their hands on one of these guys, a potential top 10 QB. It just won't be fair, especially with the team already being stacked around the QB position already. But they reportedly like Davis Mills more than any other team, so they could stay at 15 and take an Elijah Vera Tucker to replace Joe Thuney like nothing even happened, replace an all-pro guard with another one, and then take Davis Mills in the second round and develop behind Cam Newton. And that is honestly a very smart move, but I hope they do that over taking Lancer Fields from us, please. But either strategy sounds like another Patriots dynasty, I'm not gonna lie. And then lastly, of course, the Bears, another 4 out of 5 threat. I think they are a bigger threat to trade up for QB than the Patriots, honestly, just because Cam Newton is just better than Andy Dalton. But still, they have Andy Dalton as a bridge QB that can win games right now if they needed to. But hopefully they are scarred from their trade up one spot for another high potential QB with limited starts, like Trubisky at 13, Lance had 17. And I'm just hoping they just don't like Fields' haircut. I don't know. I just something, please. But the most important thing to remember with the Bears is that we pick in front of them by one spot. So we have a slight advantage over them, unlike every other team I've discussed before. And another low-key advantage we have over them in value is most people outside of the Burgundy and Gold Nation believe the Bears will win more games than us next year. So there's a belief that our future first or just future picks in general will have more value than the Bears' future picks. So if we want a QB more than the Bears, or at the very least want a QB just as much, we can outbid them easily just by offering the same exact package. Say the Bears are willing to give up this year's first, a third this year, and next year's first. We can literally offer that exact same thing. This year's first, this year's third, and next year's first, and ours is worth more just because we pick in front of them this year. And the general public believes that they will win more games than us this upcoming season, so our picks will be worth more. And lastly, before we move on to the prospects list that I'm gonna show y'all on screen, the guys that they met with and are interested in and what rounds they may potentially go in and things like that, that whole chart. And the chart will be a PDF file that you can access in the comment section. If you just go right down there, it's right there. So if you want access to the chart that we're going to talk about soon, just go to the description of this video. It's right down there. But then now the QBs outside of the first round that we may target. Number one, and it's only two of them. Team has been attached to Kyle Trask for weeks. I don't like Kyle Trask, but there's been reports that we're interested in him for weeks, and he may even slide to like the third or fourth round. And then number two, recent reports state that the Patriots, Bears, and Washington are all fairly high on Davis Mills. Us three are the highest on him out of the entire NFL. And the Patriots are reportedly the only team to see him as a first round pick and could possibly even trade back for him. And then the Bears and Washington see him as a second rounder or later. So if we don't trade up for QB, don't be surprised if we take a Davis Mills in the second or third if he's available. And then before we move on to the chart, Tay and Todd podcast and Washington reporter Nikki has a great point about how Ron Rivera has used the Buffalo model to rebuild Washington. And he's talked to Bean and McDermott a lot since last year. And you can literally look at what he's done this past year and how it exactly models what Buffalo did last year. Build up a defense that is farther along to begin with. Sign less heralded free agents who can be productive in your scheme. J.D. McKissick, Logan Thomas, Wes Schweitzer, Cornelius Lucas, Ronald Darby, who ended up leaving, but now they brought back a Eric Flowers, who pulled the original Eric Flowers that Ronald Darby just did, and Curtis Samuel. You could even say William Jackson may be one of those guys, even though I feel like he's going to be a top 5 corner potentially behind this defensive line. Hire a trusted coaching staff with an eye on continuity. Yep. Surprising playoff run in year one to boost culture. Huge, yep. And then what the Bills did that we haven't done yet, draft future QB in year 2. Bills had the number 7 pick. We could easily trade up to the number 7 pick. Won't cost anywhere near as much as a lot of people think. A lot of people think we would just have to mortgage the future. Honestly, you wouldn't. We would have to give up less to go from 19 to 7 than what the 49ers gave up to go from 12 to 3. And even then, I feel like we may not even have to go to number 7 to get Lance Fields. But even if we did, like the 49ers gave up their current first round pick, the 12th overall, next year's third, next year's first, and then a 2023 first to go from 12 to 3. We wouldn't even have to give up that. I honestly feel like you can take away one of those first, and we probably just have to give up 19 this year, one of our thirds, maybe both, still keep our second, and then give up a first round pick next year and also keep that next year's second. So I feel like at worst 2 firsts including this year's and 2 thirds, honestly. And even then, again, I still don't feel like we may even have to trade up to 7. I feel like you may be able to get a Fields or Lance maybe at 8 or 9, honestly. And remember the Chiefs, when they traded up for Patrick Mahomes, they had the 27th pick and moved to 10. We have the 19th pick and may have to move to 7, maybe 8 or 9, maybe even 10. But they gave up their 27th pick, their first rounder, a third rounder, and then the next year's first. And they had to move up 17 spots, where I feel like we may only have to move up 12 at most. And again, they gave up a first, a third, and a first. I feel like we can do the same thing. Again, at worst, I think it will be a first, 2 thirds, and a first. And I'm definitely willing to give that up for a future franchise quarterback in Lance Fields, easily. And then also the next steps that we have to take after taking quarterback in draft high in year 2 is build around that QB with O-line and playmakers. And I can definitely see us doing that next year's draft, the 2022 draft. And then, of course, the last point is draft well. But, of course, everybody's point is the draft well. But, I mean, you can literally see us modeling everything we're doing after the Bills. All right, now we got to move on to the chart. Yes, sir. So those of y'all that have seen my draft prospects we're targeting videos, you've already seen like the details of this chart. I'm just going to skim through this real quick for those of y'all who may not know. My favorites are bolded. and underline. You'll see that when we get to the page. Just my guys, my favorite guys in the draft. No matter what round, there's just my guys, and I'm just like signing my name beside the fact that they will be great, or at least good, or have a lot of potential. I'm not guaranteeing it, but those guys have a lot of potential. I feel like they're extremely slept on, especially for the later round guys. So picks 1 through 32 are round 1. Round 2, picks 33 through 64. Then round 3, that's when you start getting the compensatory picks. It's normally 65 through the hundreds, round 4, hundreds through 140s, so on and so forth. And then based on this chart, there's 23 receivers on it, 21 DBs, 10 tight ends, 9 defensive linemen, 8 O-line, 6 QB, 3 running back, 4 linebacker. And then according to the Draft Network's big board, which is the order that I have this chart in based on their general consensus big board, because we're not going to agree on any big board, so I just went with the Draft Networks because I know they have a lot of different guys and opinions influencing that big board, so I feel like it's going to be the one that generally gets the least hate. And the highest QB is rated 6, the highest tackles rated 10, the highest receivers rated 14, and so on and so forth. Oh, actually linebacker, I should have changed that because Micah Parsons is higher than that. That's my fault on that. But yeah, basically this is how this goes. And then to me, our biggest needs are franchise quarterback, linebacker, rangy free safety, tight end number 2, corner. Offensive line may be even lower after the Eric Flowers trade, but still running back depth, edge depth, and then it wouldn't hurt to get some more receivers in there. And then here's the chart. Again, the PDF file that you can access is in the description, so I'm not gonna read through every single person like I did in my previous videos, but I just want you to take a look at some of the highlighted, like anything that's a lighter shade is a recent update from the last time I showed y'all the chart. And it's not a lot of updates. Like Jabril Cox, I found out that the time that we met with him, it was specifically our linebackers coach. Then I also added Elijah Vera Tucker because we were interested in him based on reports, but we haven't necessarily met with him virtually, I believe. And then Micah Parsons also according to reports. Same thing for Davis Mills according to reports, and Kyle Trask according to reports. And then I also just want to highlight the guys that they seem very interested in just based on how many times they met with them. They met with Christian Darrisaw multiple times, Kadarius Toney multiple times. They went heavy to Trey Lance's first pro day. Zaven Collins multiple times. Tevin Jenkins multiple times. Asante Samuel Jr. multiple times. But I saw a report that Asante Samuel Jr. had the most virtual meetings out of any player in this entire draft. Like, he met with the most teams the most times, period. Then also my boy Tommy Tremble multiple times. My boy Quinn Miners met with 2 times apparently. So there's some serious interest there as well. I really hope we end up getting Tommy Tremble. I love Tommy Tremble, man. Also, Anthony Schwartz, receiver from Auburn. Special teams capability, great returner potential, also great slot receiver potential, especially if Adam Humphries can't stay healthy. Met with him multiple times. So again, you can access this chart in the comment section to read through it and get a better idea of what's going on and who we may be targeting. I don't want to spend another 30 minutes reading through each name, each position, what our connection is to them, how many times we met with them and things like that. I've already done that in previous videos, so this is just the overall draft guide, so you can go check that out yourself. Again, the file is attached in a link in the description. But yeah, man, that's the end of this overall draft guide. I just finished recording this at 1:10 p.m. and I have to edit it. I more than likely will not have this edited before I live stream at 2 p.m. So this will probably come out sometime around like 4 something, 5 something after I'm done editing it. I'm gonna edit it up until 2 p.m. when I live stream, but it's not gonna be done within 50 minutes. I already know that. So definitely pull up to the live streams. I'm live streaming rounds 1 through 5 today, 2 p.m. of course before the live stream, but this video will more than likely come out after I live stream, so it's really no point in me saying that. And then of course round 1 today, rounds 2 and 3 Friday, as in tomorrow, and rounds 4 and 5 on Saturday. I will not be live streaming rounds 6 and 7. And then of course I'm gonna do my analysis and breakdown of each player that we draft, and of course like an overall draft grade and analysis. And then leading up to training camp, I'm gonna do film sessions on all of the guys that we pick up, and maybe even some undrafted free agents if they're good enough, if they're notable enough players. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. Please like this video if you liked it. If you learned anything, please get in the comment section, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I really hope y'all enjoy this draft guide, and definitely subscribe, man. infinite draft content coming. Like I keep telling y'all, man, this draft season, this off-season stuff is my favorite part of football. I honestly enjoy team building more than actual Sundays, like watching film on players. I mean, even going as far down as recruiting out of high school and where they go to in college, and then watching them go from college to the NFL and develop and things like that. All of this GM type of stuff, the scouting type stuff, is my favorite part. So if you like any of that stuff as well, if you want any of the ins and outs as far as that goes, especially Washington wise, but everybody wise, because even for these draft live streams, I'm going to be predicting and analyzing every pick, not just Washington's. So if you like any of that type of content, definitely subscribe and hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification every time I immediately release a video like that one, every time I release a live stream, a film session, all of that type of stuff. And as always, man, I really appreciate all of the support, man. Big time. Shouts out to all of my people that like and pull up to every video and live stream. Shouts out to everybody that donates, man. Really appreciate y'all. And of course, big shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose names you see scrolling on the screen right now. Really appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.